During World War I, a huge 2.5 million Muslims fought for the Allies, which included France, Russia, and Britain. Almost 100,000 Muslims gave their lives for France in World War I. The French built the Grand Mosque of Paris as a memorial to their loss and as a sign of friendship between France and Islam. Almost 20 years later, during World War II, this mosque would be a safe place for Jews to stay while the Nazis ruled France. They almost became victims of the terrible Holocaust, but one man led them to safety. That man was Si Kaddour Benghabrit. Si Kaddour Benghabrit was born in Algeria, North Africa, on November 1, 1868. He was a scholar of Islam, a thinker, and a social worker. He also worked for the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs as a translator and linguist. Benghabrit was the first head imam of the Grand Mosque of Paris and its founder. He led the first prayer in the Grand Mosque while the French president was there. Benghabrit wrote books and liked music. He became one of the most important Arabs in Europe. An evil police force. The Gestapo is a name that will be familiar to the vast majority of individuals who are knowledgeable about World War II and Nazi Germany. It was the covert political police force of Nazi Germany, and it was responsible for some of the worst crimes ever committed against individuals during what is today considered to have been one of the darkest moments in the history of humanity. It was formerly known in German as the Geheime Staatspolizei, which literally translates to Secret State Police. The acronym Gestapo derives from this longer term. The kind of policing we see and hear about in the media and in the modern world is not the same as the kind of policing that is done in political contexts. It typically involves methods such as surveillance and the collection of information in order to identify potential dangers to the government. The Nazi regime placed a lot of faith in this group to maintain the status quo and safeguard their authority. People were often subjected to brutal treatment at the hands of the Gestapo. They would beat and torture people who were in their custody, and they would kill anyone who attempted to resist the Third Reich's authority. The vast majority of those who were exterminated were Jewish, but in addition to that, they exterminated LGBT people, political opponents, and anyone else who they perceived to be a risk to the Nazi administration. They were also in charge of transporting Jews from areas of Europe under Nazi authority to concentration camps such as Auschwitz, where their fate was predetermined to be death. They played a significant role in the Holocaust, which is widely regarded as one of the genocides with the most horrific toll in human history. Hitler comes to France. France capitulated to Nazi Germany and signed a peace treaty with Germany on June 22, 1940. This pact established a German occupation zone in a portion of France. In contrast of what the vast majority of people believe, France actually put up a respectable fight. Their soldiers battled valiantly against the Germans, but in the end, they were unable to defeat the mechanized Nazi army, as was discussed in a prior section of this video. The oppressive policies of Nazi Germany and the Gestapo were implemented after the country's conquest of Europe and subsequent incorporation of France into its territory. The Gestapo initiated operations to round up Jewish people in order to transport them to concentration camps. Following the end of World War I, a significant number of Muslims from Algeria relocated to France. They were known as the Kabyles, which indicates that they were Berbers who originated in Kabylia. They rose to prominence as Paris's most influential Muslim community, and following France's capitulation to Nazi Germany in 1940, a significant number of its members joined the French resistance. The Kabyles visited the Grand Mosque in Paris, which was presided over by Si Kaddour Benghabrit, in order to pray there. He gave permission for the Kabyles to invite their Jewish acquaintances to the mosque without the Gestapo interfering in the process. He devised a strategy to save the Jews who were in peril, and it consisted of 3 components: safe haven, forged documents, and secure transit. First, in order for them to blend in with the community, he would allow them to live in apartments with Muslim families. After that, he forged documents for these Jews and gave them to the Gestapo in the hopes of having them accepted as members of the Muslim group. He would ultimately let them leave the mosque when it was safe to do so through hidden tunnels that led to the banks of the Seine. There, empty wine barrels and boats were ready for them to take them away from German-controlled Paris. How did he get away with it? The Nazis became aware of the cable resistance shortly after the news spread about how they concealed Jewish people, which drew their attention. In the event that the Gestapo or French police showed up at the Grand Mosque, Benghabrit would have a strategy to prevent the Jews from being apprehended. Benghabrit's office had a warning bell that rang every time the Germans began a new raid. This bell was located under his desk. He would urge the Jewish people who were fleeing to go pray in a place where men were not permitted. This was his strategy for saving their lives. In addition to this, he fabricated birth certificates and documents of conversion to make it appear as though Jews had converted to Islam. Because Benghabrit was of Algerian, Moroccan, and French descent, he had little trouble getting along with people from a variety of backgrounds and often did so in a way that authorities didn't even notice. In spite of this, he was taken into custody and questioned by the Gestapo on multiple occasions due of the reports. But this didn't disturb him at all, and he never divulged to anyone else the location within the mosque where the Jews had taken refuge. This is due, in part, to the fact that the Gestapo was unable to apply the brutal tactics they typically employ on him. If the Nazis intended to prevent the surrender of North Africa to the Allies, they could not take the chance that Algerians might demonstrate in Paris or elsewhere in North Africa. Therefore, each time, a German officer of a higher rank would order him to be released. The Jews who lived. Benghabrit was good friends with Salim Halali, an Algerian Berber Jew who enjoyed singing songs from North African and had a passion for music. He fled to the mosque in order to conceal himself alongside the other Muslims as the Nazis attacked. Benghabrit did everything in his power to protect him from the Gestapo and ensure his survival. To demonstrate that Halali's grandfather had converted to Islam, he invented a piece of paper stating that the conversion had taken place. Even a gravestone in the Muslim cemetery in Bobigny that did not already have a name on it was defaced by him by having the family name of Halali's grandpa inscribed on it. After they learned the truth, they abandoned him to his own devices. He spent the rest of the war hiding out in the mosque, and when the Nazis came seeking for him, he pretended to be a Muslim so that they wouldn't find him. Following the liberation, Halali rose to prominence as Europe's most popular Oriental singer. He had a close friendship with Benghabrit throughout his life. He was a Jew who hailed from North Africa, and his name was Albert Assouline. Together with a Muslim buddy, he escaped from a prisoner of war camp in Germany and made their way to Paris without any identification. He was greeted with open arms when he arrived at the mosque. His narratives provide a deeper understanding of the Jewish refugee movement and the issues it addresses. He claimed that he had seen a large number of Jewish people concealing out in the mosque. The family that cared for the children were Muslim, and they lived on the top levels while the adults lived in the basement. It was not difficult for Jews to assimilate into Muslim society because they had many similarities with Muslims. They shared a similar appearance to Muslims, spoke Arabic, and even had the same family names as Muslims. According to Assouline, he witnessed as many as 1,700 Jews make their way to safety through the tunnels that were located beneath the mosque and into boats waiting on the banks of the Seine. They then traveled to Spain and the rest of the Western lands from there. Some sources dispute this and state that there were no more than 500 Jewish people hiding out in the Grand Mosque of Paris in order to avoid being discovered. The efforts of Si Kaddour Benghabrit during World War II demonstrate how vital it is to stand up for what is right, even when it is difficult and dangerous to do so, regardless of whether it was 500 or 1,700 years ago. Without a doubt, Benghabrit's persistent efforts to hide and shield Jews from violence and persecution helped preserve a great number of lives and contributed to the maintenance of the distinct cultural heritage of the Jewish community in Morocco. His acts of bravery and kindness during one of the darkest periods in human history demonstrate the tenacity of the human spirit and the power that is inside each individual to make a difference in the world. When we are confronted with issues such as bigotry and hatred in our world today, the legacy of Benghabrit provides us with a powerful incentive to keep going. We hope you like this video, subscribe to the channel if you're a history addict, and please let us know about what civilization or time period we should talk about. Also, watch another video here.